On game night, there's only one food delivery service that's a real slam dunk. Grubhub's got you covered with game time eats, late night treats, lazy lunches, family dinners, and more. It's all on Grubhub. And now Amazon Prime members get a year of Grubhub Plus for free. So you pay zero delivery fees when you order. Visit goforgrubhub.com/Amazon for details. And with the holidays right around the corner, Grubhub gift cards are the perfect gift for everyone on your list. Download the Grubhub app today. Go for Grubhub.
This holiday, Audible invites you to listen in on some of today's most creative musicians telling their stories in their own words. Origins is an Audible Originals podcast series featuring music and memories from artists like Billie Eilish, Camilo, Doja Cat, Flying Lotus, and more. Discover what shaped their creativity and get drawn into the immersive sound design that lets you feel the experiences that inspired them. Start listening to this innovative new series at audible.com/origins.
AT&T believes that if you want a smartphone, you should get the best deal on that smartphone, no matter what kind of smartphone person you are. People who reply to texts immediately. Emoji overtexters, emoji haters, custom emoji makers, app personalizers, and alphabetizers. Even those who blast music off their phone at the gym. At AT&T, we give new and existing customers our best deals on every smartphone. Save up to $1,000 on our most popular smartphones with eligible trade-in. Offers vary by device. Terms and restrictions apply. See AT&T.com or visit an AT&T store for details.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing? We're all doing the same, roughly. Well, I hope you're being safe. This is Ray Harkins. You're listening to 100 Words or Less, the podcast forever present in your life. I mean, we're talking about 400 some odd episodes, so it feels like I am forever present in your life. So we are talking to people who are involved in independent music, whether that's mean creating it, whether that means putting it out, whether that means documenting it in whatever capacity. That is what I care about, and that is what you care about because you listen to this on a week-to-week basis, or, you know, maybe you just check in once a month. Whatever it is, welcome. Today's guest is Matt Honeycutt, and he plays in the band Kublai Khan TX, who is a basic, just super, super heavy hardcore band. And I speak about this at the very beginning of the interview, but I just wrote the band off. For a long time, I just thought they were kind of a, silly sort of, thug-adjacent hardcore band. And I couldn't be more wrong. Once I started to listen to them a little bit more, especially their most recent full length, it was just one of those things where there was more than meets the eye. And I got to know Matt a lot during this conversation, and just an incredibly intelligent dude. And this band is maybe more than meets the initial eye. So I highly encourage you, even if you only have maybe a very passing awareness of the band, listen to this conversation. It'll educate you in ways that it educated me, and made me more receptive to the band at large, which I like. I like having my preconceived notions smashed, and that's exactly what Matt did. And he was just a southern drawl conversation. I'm not even going to try to mimic it, but Matt was a great chat. So let's talk about you. How are you? Like, we are in week 47 of quarantine. I know that many people's worlds are, I wouldn't say returning to normal, but they are definitely, opening up where you're allowed to do more things. I mean, here in Southern California, there definitely seems to be an air of, people maybe, kind of ignoring certain rules and practices. And it's, it's disheartening on one hand because you're like, what are you doing? Like, we all need to kind of, be in this collective sort of stay-at-home thing together until we have some sort of idea how far this is spread, how the testing is, and all this other stuff. I'm not going to get political on here, but, and then on the other hand, like, you get it because people are social creatures and they can't be isolated for this long. But at the same time, I always look back at the idea that you just can't be selfish during this time. Like, you really have to, do things. Like, you can do things within reason, like maybe you can go visit a friend and, you both can be socially distanced and, wearing masks and stuff like that. But, do you need to go hang out at the beach with thousands of other people? Probably not. And I wish that more people kind of, heeded the now I was about to call the government but the government hasn't really done very much throughout this pandemic. Heed the scientists and doctors and everybody who is sharing as much information as possible. So, yeah, just be safe out there. That's ultimately what I'm trying to tell you. So, here's the conversation with Matt. And of course, at the very end of the episode, I will always talk to you about the guest the following week. And you can always email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. And I've gotten a lot of feedback recently in regards to, how to support the show. And there's a few ways you can do that. One, you can obviously share this episode. It would be great for you to, tag the guests, tag the show, tag myself, whatever it is, as you're sharing it on social media. I really, that's the best way to get word out about this show. And then you can also, rate and review the podcast on whatever podcast catcher you're using, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, whatever the case may be. Just do that. That would be helpful. And, yeah, those are the best two ways. That's how you can support the show. I don't look for donations. I definitely have advertisements in here. But this thing just keeps trucking along, and I'm going to continue this journey in documenting independent music for quite some time, until it becomes no longer feasible for me to do so. But, here I am 400 some odd episodes later, and we're still doing it. So anyways, here's Matt, and I will talk to you after the episode is over. I will completely admit that I wrote your band off for a very long time. I just thought you were some sort of typical mosh beatdown band with no, real kind of substance per se. This is...
Yeah, that's what most people did, to be honest.
I was going to say that it was like, it wasn't until, honestly, I think it was the most recent record was definitely the one that like really sprung up. But, I always have to, give respect to bands like yourselves who are, you guys have been obviously working for a long time. And so, I get that. But I don't know, it just really kind of sprung to me on this last LP where I was like, oh no, like there's clearly more substance behind this. But I'm going to guess based on your response right there that that happens, I guess, a lot for you guys, where people just kind of write you off as a very sort of stereotypical mosh band with not very much substance behind it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, our whole band's lifespan has pretty much been an uphill battle trying to get people to pay attention. I mean, it's one of those things like, for instance, a good example is we just, the last tour we just got off of, that was probably less than a week ago, we just got off tour with Terror. And it was kind of one of those same things. I feel like a lot of the people that were, Terror fans and stuff like that were coming out, that probably just were like, oh, what the hell is this? You know what I mean? Until you actually sit down and watch us and give us a real good chance, or sit down and give us a good listen, it's real easy to hear a band's name X amount of times and just, you don't even have to hear them. Sometimes people just make up what they think the band sounds like, and then that's just fact. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, for sure.
So, even with that, like it was a pretty eye-opening experience, seeing a bunch of like old head like Terror dudes being like, man, you guys are actually really good. Like, that was cool. Like, I enjoyed that. You know what I mean? And it's kind of just like, yeah, man, like I'm the same way. I'm very closed-minded when it comes to music on a lot of stuff. And I have to catch myself, from doing that, because you might miss out on a great opportunity of something that you like. It's kind of like when you used to buy CDs back in the day,
mm-hmm.
and you buy it for the 2 tracks that you really liked, but then, a year would go by without you listening to any of the other tracks. Then you'd listen to track 9 and you're like, man, track 9's fucking crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why am I not giving this whole thing a chance? But I think it kind of just goes that way with bands as well. And our band, especially for how long we've been around, is definitely a good example of kind of just, snap judgment a lot. But it's never affected us. We don't care either way. We're just going to do what we keep doing. And if people are on board, cool. If they're not, give it a chance or don't.
Yeah, no, it's not like you can affect those people that, kind of just simply don't put any either research or time into what the band is or what the band's about, or, all those things that, make you more endeared toward a band. But yeah, it's like you said, it's very easy to, look at a certain band, look at the way they look, and just kind of be like, oh, that's not for me. I'm not going to check them out.
Exactly. Yeah. And especially with the time that we live in now, where it's just everything being so instant, you know, if you don't like something within the first 30 seconds, you can go find something else that, you know, there you'll have 100 other options and stuff that can catch your eye. So it is a little bit harder, even in general, just to keep people's attention, to snag people's attention. And I think that kind of creates this strange vacuum of, you know, shock and just weird stuff that people try to do to kind of expose their band a little bit more in the muck. And it's just like, it creates a really weird environment for everybody, I think. And that's why, you know, our band, I like to believe, is an example of a band that just kind of kept our heads down for the last decade and just did it the way we wanted to do it, even if it was the slow way or the not so, you know, gratifying instantly kind of way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And, yeah, I don't know if I'm kind of going off on a tangent.
No. Well, welcome to podcasting, my friend.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's easy too, just kind of, you know, whatever, being very generically speaking, looking at you guys and saying, it's like, oh yeah, here's, you know, some mosh band from Texas, and, you know, got the Southern drawl accent, and like, they're probably just, you know, dum heads and, you know, moshing or whatever. And so, you know, that adds another layer of people kind of, you know, judging who you are before actually, you know, getting to know the art that you are creating.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like you said too, even just being from Texas, like usually whenever, you know, people ask like, oh, where's your band from? Yada, yada. And it's like, it's going to go one of two ways. You never hear people be like, oh, you know, we tell them we're from Texas and they're like, oh, well, that's neat. It's either like, oh, that's awesome, or just like, for real? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's real hit or miss, especially depending on certain parts of the country, which is crazy because the markets that we do the best are like, you know, the coast. Like we do really well in California. We do really well in, you know, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, like a lot of places that are just the complete polar opposite for the most part of Texas. But that's where I feel like even what we do, our sound and just the way that we carry ourselves is a little bit more exotic in those places than it would be so close to home. You know what I mean? Because you can walk into Walmart and see anybody that's just like us, as opposed to kind of being like a traveling sideshow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. And especially too with the fact that, you know, I think through the fact that you have, like you said, done your own thing for the past 10 years. And, you know, people undoubtedly have seen your name on flyers and have seen the kind of work you've put in, whether or not they're paying attention to it, just seeing your name out there. And, you know, at a certain point, people need to reckon with the fact that it's like, oh no, like this is a serious thing. This isn't just like, you know, passing by, or like, you know, like you said, going on tour with Terror and getting in front of people who may have, just like you said, you know, kind of written you off, and then having to reckon with that makes people, you know, hopefully understand where you're coming from a little bit more than just, you know, simply passing it by.
Oh yeah. And I mean, we all love that kind of stuff. We've taken a lot of tours that were, you know, I guess like a leap of faith. Like if you want to put it, like we toured a Census Fail all the way to Terror. Those are pretty, you know, I guess if you want to say far ends of the spectrum of stuff we've done, you know, both of which pulled completely different crowds with completely different reactions. But the only thing that remained constant in the whole situation was us. Like we never faltered with what we were doing. We've never changed our appearance or our sound or our presence to kind of adhere to a different group. Like I feel that's the weakest thing you can do. And that will get people to write you off faster than anything is kind of, you know, an imbalance in character, you know?
No, it's a very good point. Cause I mean, you could do the most that I see bands that are, you know, actually credible, you know, having to modify their set lists where it's like, okay, you know, this crowd is, you know, maybe we shouldn't play our heaviest thing all the time. And, you know, you can do that. And obviously you're still being authentic to who you are because, you know, you're playing your songs regardless. But yeah, you know, if you got up there in, you know, Adidas jumpsuits for, you know, Terror, and then, you know, like suits and ties for Census Fail, then people would be like, what the hell is this band?
Yeah, exactly. And I would have to question that myself. Like, what the hell are we at that point? You know what I mean? And it's you know, it's just kind of and I'm not necessarily bashing on bands that, because we know plenty of them that they'll you know, turn a different way any room they're in, but it's just kind of what you choose to do at that point. And it's it's definitely a slower crawl, in my opinion, to kind of just, I guess, do it like the old-fashioned way and just play your fucking music and keep your head down and don't be a showboat about shit. You know what I mean? But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
hopefully that makes sense.
No, it does, because you're presenting your most authentic self and the way that you have, especially as you grow older within the context of playing your music, you hopefully become better and smarter, and, you can realize that, like, oh yeah, like, tuning in between every song, like, that's punishing for the crowd. So, like, maybe we won't do that. You modify that, but that's a different story than, you being like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to shave my head for this tour, and then I'm going to grow my hair out for this one or whatever. It's like, that's a weird vibe.
No, exactly. Yeah. And it's really just a personal preference, but I feel like the more that time goes on, the more that, and I think it goes in cycles for sure. The more that people wake up to kind of just the ridiculousness of what goes on, but then also, the ridiculousness is what keeps the train moving, because, that's what keeps things interesting. So there's a balance in it. You know what I mean? And you can't bash one without kind of secretly needing the other, if that makes sense,
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Well, it's because I think if, everyone was traveling sort of in the same lane, you wouldn't really have anything to kind of, rebel against, where it's like you see someone doing something some way and you're like, well, that's their way, and that is for sure not what we want to do or whatever. We want to model everything sort of against that. And in the same way that they, that those bands or whoever's creating that art is looking at the way that, bands like yourself are doing it, are just like, dude, what do you mean? Like 10 years in a van? We want to do a year in a van, and then, or whatever. Like, it's just, you got to have stuff you push against.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now kind of, putting the focus more solely on you as a person. I know that you were born and raised in Sherman, Texas, correct? Because that's basically where the band says they're from, right?
Yeah, I was born in Indiana, but I moved at about the age of 3. So I pretty much, from when I came online to being able to remember shit, it was in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude,
funny because there's bumper stickers you'll see on people's cars in Texas and stuff that the bumper stickers always say, like, I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as fast as I could. And that's kind of my motto with that too.
Right.
I mean?
Yeah. And I just love how you phrased it. When I came online, I've literally never heard anybody use that in relation to, like, them being conscious of their own human beingness. I love that.
Yeah.
It's true.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad.
Yeah, no, I like that. It's like, yeah, because I mean, before that, before the age of 3 or 4, it's like, you don't remember much. Like, you remember these stories that people tell
I know
you.
Stuff happened, but I can't ever recollect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But and I have never seen that bumper sticker of I wasn't born in Texas, but I rushed down here as soon as I could. That's funny.
Well, if I ever see one at a store, I'll get it, and then I'll track down your address and I'll mail it to you.
I love it. Yeah. Because I mean, obviously everyone knows the, don't mess with Texas, and the fact that, Texas is basically its own sovereign land in comparison to the rest of the United States. But I could see, I could easily see that statement being, waved down in Texas.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of pride going on, but.
Let me solve all of your holiday shopping problems right now by talking to you about the premium audio products from Raycon. They have wireless earbuds, headphones, and speakers that offer premium sound. I personally adore the wireless earbuds. I've been using them for 4 or 5 years. They got a ton of battery life. We're talking 54 plus hours. It's incredible. And honestly, I have gotten them for gifts for my significant other. I've gotten them for my family and friends, and they all come back to me and they're like, dude, this is incredible. Why have I never used these before? And I'm like, I don't know. That's your fault. That's why I am here to help you. And for the next month, Raycon will have a countdown to Christmas with a new pop-up flash deal for you to take advantage of every single day. Now, what can you do? You can go to buyraycon.com/Ray and get the best deals around. That gets you 15% off site-wide with code HOLIDAY plus free shipping. That is code HOLIDAY at buyraycon.com/Ray for 15% off your Raycon purchase and then free shipping. So again, go to buyraycon.com/Ray, solve all of your shopping problems, and then maybe, toss a pair of headphones there for you. Okay? Maybe just an idea, but thank you, Raycon, and buy them now.
Explore new cultures and experiences with Intrepid Travel. Intrepid specializes in socially conscious travel with over 900 amazing small group adventures to choose from in more than 100 countries. Whether it's the mountaintop vistas of the Andes, the wildlife of Tanzania, or the hidden noodle bars of Vietnam, Intrepid is there. There to get you off the beaten track, behind the scenes, and totally immersed in the joy of travel. Discover more at intrepidtravel.com. Intrepid Travel. Travel is back for good.
What's the worst thing about sports? Oh. That's right, all those breaks in play. But you can make them all better by using Grubhub. You wouldn't have a movie night without snacks, so why would you settle for a halftime without food? Grubhub has every food you could possibly crave, from national favorites to local spots. Reorder your regulars or find something brand lip-smackingly new. You can search by city, cuisine, restaurant name, or if it's a firm favorite, even by menu item. Delivered on time at the lowest price. Order through the Grubhub app or online at grubhub.com. That's grubhub.com. And of course, don't forget, with the holidays right around the corner, Grubhub gift cards are the perfect gift for everyone on your list. Now Amazon Prime members get a year of Grubhub Plus for free. That's $0 food delivery fees from your favorite restaurants. Visit goforgrubhub.com/Amazon for terms and details. Go for Grubhub.
Right. And so when you were, coming up, like and I know that you've spoken about this in the past in regards to, your father wasn't really present in your life, and, you came from your mom basically doing all of the raising. Did you ever have contact with your dad? Do you have contact with your dad now, or is he basically just completely out of the picture?
No, I've never really had contact with him. I never really even sought it out, to be honest with you. It was one of those things, like, I feel like it's like this for a lot of kids too. Like, it hits you a lot harder when you're younger because the world is still so new to you, and your social circles are so small. Your parents kind of are your world. You haven't stepped out to really see anybody else. And it's kind of one of those things too, even with making friends. You know what I mean? You when you can pick and choose who you really want to put in your life, you start to kind of, I don't want to necessarily drop the value of certain people in your life, but you kind of realize, like, man, well, I don't really need that shit. I got people in my life that are good to me and care about me and stuff like that. So probably about when I hit my teenage years, I kind of just, it still was something that I would think about, and there was constant kind of reminders and stuff. But as every year would kind of progress on, other than the fact of it hurting my mother so much, I really kind of just, I don't really know how to explain it. Like, really kind of tried to focus my energy elsewhere. You know what I mean? Because you can either let that kind of shit grind you up and turn you into a shit-ass person, or you can at least do your best to deal with it. I'm not saying necessarily get over it or ever be comfortable with it, because there's still a lot of discomfort. There's still a lot of, feelings that are never going to have any sort of closure. But that's just life. And the sooner that you can really kind of get in control of that and try to get in control of your own feelings about it, the closer you are to liberation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, never really had any contact with him. Haven't really thought about it in probably a decade, as far as like, oh, man, I should maybe reach out. Just because it's one of those things, like, I don't know. My life is not necessarily what I wanted it to be, but it's at the same time everything I could have hoped it could be. So it's like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
so
to your
I don't know. I don't really stress it too much.
Yeah, no, I totally understand it, because to your point, you were making the conscious decision to not, like you said, be, weighed down by that, because that was, his decision, or obviously other parents' decisions, when it's either through, divorce, or the fact that, this person cannot maintain responsibility for this child, or whatever the case may be. That is a choice. So it's like you are taking control of that narrative within your life in your head and moving on with it, rather than being like, well, I can't change this person's mind, so what can I do about it?
Exactly. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people that have been listening to our records over the years, because I have about 2 songs that are related to that kind of theme, and they'd be like, well, then what the hell, man, why are you writing songs about it and whatnot? But it's like, it's one of those things, like, if you listen to the tracks and you listen to what I'm saying, that's everything I've just said is what I'm saying. It's not me being like, oh crap, my life sucked, my daddy wasn't there. You know what I mean? It's talking about turning that energy into something that you can use as a weapon against the world in a positive way, as opposed to just like, nobody wants to hang out with a dude that's just pissy all the time about some shit that he can't change. You know what I mean? Sooner or later, you gotta get shit under control. You know what I mean? Just for the sake of being a normal enough human being to be around, you know, because I know plenty of people that they just harbor shit. They can't let shit go. And I'm like that in a lot of ways. There's a lot of shit in my life that, you know, it's a daily struggle to not get fucking infuriated, but you got to try. And I feel like at least through the music, that helped me try. And there's plenty of other people that listen to that may be in the same situation or a similar one that have felt that same way. And if it gives them even a tiny bit of motivation, you know, cool. Like that's good enough for me. I didn't really write it to be viewed as like anything other than just what I felt. There was no motive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if it does help, cool.
Totally. Well, yeah, it's like that. I mean, I think anytime you're putting out art out into the world, you know, clearly it's not yours anymore. You're expressing, you know, your feelings, your emotions, you know, your musicality, and then you put it out there, and however that affects people is a byproduct of that. And, you know, if you affect a person in a positive way, you're just like, oh, that's incredible. Like, you know, I didn't anticipate that, and that wasn't my manifesto, but, you know, this is incredible. And I'm so glad because, you know, your music and your art is affecting people in the same way that music and art affected you.
Exactly. And I mean, that's a beautiful thing about it is so much of it is accidental too. You know, everybody wants to think, oh yeah, this is all so intentional. And it's really not. I mean, think about how many songs you've heard randomly or things that have been told to you in passing that stuck with you for your whole life, or things that could have changed your perspective in a matter of minutes. You know what I mean? That were just by happenstance. And it's stuff like that, you know, and it makes me think there's been several people over the years that have brought their mothers and junk to shows because their moms will be like, oh, what do you listen to? Yada, yada. Like, let me hear what you're listening to or whatnot. And sometimes they'd show them like our stuff and this stuff related to, you know, the struggles of single mothers and stuff like that. And it's like, you know, this is some 40-something-year-old woman that probably listens to Bon Jovi, and she's coming to one of our shows because there was, you know, a random event that made her feel compelled to join in what was going on, you know, and we welcome that kind of stuff. We're not ever like, oh shit, yeah, I got another one. You know what I mean? It's just like, it just kind of is what it is. Cause at the end of the day, all this is going to end. All you really have is the memories that you make and the relationships that you build. So, I mean, if you're really not putting your success and your merit into those, I feel like you're kind of funneling them into the wrong, bucket, which, you know, a lot of people would disagree with me on that because that's one reason that it's taken our band so long to get where we are is we're not focused so much on, you know, getting likes or getting money or getting other stuff. And, you know, don't get me wrong, getting paid out's been nice, you know, finally being able to pay bills with some of this shit after doing it for so fucking long is pretty cool.
Right.
But that's never been the driving force. You know, it's always just been about, man, like, you know, you got one opportunity to do this, to push it as far as you possibly can, to make as many memories as you can. Because someday, you know, I could be old. I could be in an assisted living home. I could have blown it and never had a family. I could have nobody in my life. Nobody cares about me. When I have my funeral, nobody shows up. But at least I have those memories. You know what I mean?
Rockabilia.com is your partner throughout this weird time that we are all living in, where live music has basically gone away. But you can support your favorite bands by ordering through rockabilia.com. So first off, use the code PC100words. That gets you 15% off your order. And that supports the bands because they are all officially licensed pieces of merch through Rockabilia. So you're not getting some horrific bootleg where the band sees no money. You're also supporting a small business based out of the Midwest that is independently run and operated. They are just the real deal, and I love them so much. So use the code PC100words. You can buy so much rad stuff from all of your favorite bands. You can get ready for summer, get some awesome tank tops. I can probably guarantee, I actually have not searched this out, but you can probably find some swim trunks on there. You know, I don't think that they sell kiddie pools on rockabilia.com, but you'll probably be able to find some other rad summer stuff for you to dive into. So please support Rockabilia. Please support independent music. And in turn, you're also supporting the show as well. So PC100words is the code. and rockabilia.com is the site. Thank you very much, Rockabilia.
Hearing, you speak and the way that you are, frankly, you're very eloquent, and I appreciate that about you, and you're thoughtful.
Thanks.
You're welcome. That doesn't necessarily kind of typify what, again, what people sort of like, in Texas, in the South, the style of music you play, it's not always synonymous with one another. And I'm sure that gets kind of reflected back on you, where it's just like, oh, like, Matt, you're actually smart. Or like, I'm being, I'm exaggerating here, but, do you find people kind of having that sort of reaction as well? Maybe it's not directly to your face, but I'm sure you maybe anecdotally heard things.
Oh yeah. I got a story for you. There's, some buddies that we had that weren't from around where we're from, and we were on tour with them, and they're some of our best friends. You know what I mean? Love those guys. We'd go to bat for them any day. But we all have different accents, you know what I'm saying? And it was funny because over the course of a few days, we'd all be talking about bullshit or this and that. And one of them would do like his dumb guy impression. And it was my accent, it was one of those things. And he didn't think about it like that. And, finally one day it was me and him when we were talking, I was like, you realize when you do your stupid guy accent, that's my accent, and I'm not a stupid guy. I'm not a smart guy, but I'm not a stupid guy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's just people. It's very people just aren't so thoughtful sometimes. I feel like, especially you'd be so shocked. And I'm sure there's people calling bullshit right this very second, but there are people in Texas, in my town that I grew up in, that are fucking brilliant, but you can barely understand the thing they say. Like the accent is one of the main things. I mean, it's the accent and just the whole kind of style of it, like we pull up on a tour and I'm wearing cowboy boots and a wife beater, not, the newest Nikes and coolest band shirt, and it's like I kind of get written off immediately. It's just like, who in the fuck is this guy? But it's like, if you come where we live, you'll understand that y'all are the one that would stick out. You know what I'm saying? And it's just one of those things, like even with the accent, like I can't help this shit. I didn't really even realize I had it till people started telling me. I mean, the house I grew up in as a kid, we had a potbelly pig that lived in the fucking backyard. What was his name?
Yeah, what was the pig's name?
His name was Bubba. He was a big black potbelly pig.
Love it.
And he lived in the backyard, and I mean, he was great. He was cool and stuff like that. And it's just stuff like that where, I'll tell people that and they'll be like, oh gosh, what are you talking about? And the fact, like, I used to drive around in like one of the $300,000 or $400,000 tractors, like tilling up land and shit like that, like doing farm work, doing construction, like doing like, I guess like Texas blue collar shit. But it's like, you look at a lot of the dudes that are in bands from Texas, we all come from pretty much the same lineage like that. It's a lot of just, fellas that are hanging out in their dad's garage or their uncle's garage, and, Pantera starts playing over the radio, and you're just like, what the hell is that shit?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then next thing you know, you fucking doing it for a living.
Right.
And so you can pull these people from anywhere. I mean, some of the best bands that I know, if you talk to them, they sound just like me. And people, it's funny because anytime I do interviews or anything like that on YouTube or any, podcasts, on mostly YouTube because you can read the comments and junk, I guess. But so many people are just like, dude, did not expect him to talk like that. Like, dang. And there's always people in the comments that will come to bat and be like, well, they're from Texas, man. Like, that's just what it is, and it's just like, it's cool because if you can separate the stereotype from the logic, you can get pretty far. I mean, we don't ever go around, with stereotypes in our heads about like, oh, well, everybody with New York accents like this. Like, I got so many buddies in New York that, dude, they are fucking like Italian New Yorkers. And I love it, dude. I tell them, I'm like, don't ever lose your fucking accent, dude. Like, that is so unique. And that's what makes this country so amazing. Is you got so many different people that if they learn to coexist, it's the perfect ongoing social experiment in so many ways. And I think that us being able to use our music as a medium and to travel to all these different areas and do this kind of stuff. I mean, shit, when we're over in London, and I'm on stage talking how I am right now, people love that shit, you know, because it's just something different, and it's not forced. It's just like, well, this is just how I am, and that's what people can like about it, is the sincerity of just like getting to know somebody from a different place, from a different walk of life. But then whenever shit gets nitty gritty and shit hits the fan, and we got a bunch of people in the middle, you know, getting everything hyped up, we're all the same folks. You know what I mean? And you really don't need speech at that point. You can just translate it through the music, and good shit, you know?
Yeah, no.
Hopefully that answered the question. I'm real bad about going off, man.
No, dude. Hey, like I said, welcome to podcasting, my friend. You're perfect for it. Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying. So, you know, like you mentioned, kind of your upbringing in regards to, you know, like you were doing a lot of, you know, random sort of, you know, farm blue collar work and stuff like that. And like you said, you know, your mom was present. Did you have any brothers or sisters, or are you an only child?
No, I never had any. Only child, but I mean, the house I grew up in when I was a kid, it was everybody. I mean, it was my 2 uncles, my grandma, my mom, my aunt, 3 of my cousins, like 6 dogs, a pig, cat. Like it was a full house, and it was a 4-bedroom house. Yeah, so
yeah, you had a lot.
There
going
was
on.
a lot of folks, man.
Yeah,
and you know, but it was growing up. There was a lot of people. So I never thought about it as like, oh man, I wish I had a brother or sister. Like I had my cousins, so I was,
yeah,
that was pretty good, you know.
Yeah, everyone was always around. Yeah, that makes total sense. And so, you know, what kind of kid did you find yourself being as you were, you know, especially as you were getting to like, you know, junior high and high school? Like, were you, you know, into sports? Were you, you know, a science kid? Like, what sort of lane did you find yourself kind of gravitating towards?
I really didn't even know. Those are, you know, kind of mystic times. I don't know what kind of happened in a lot of that stuff. You know what I mean? I remember a lot of stuff that I was doing was just trying different shit with my hair. I remember doing that because I just didn't know. You know, whenever you're in middle school and you're still lanky and you're goofy and you're not attractive and you don't know who you are yet or what you want, and you kind of just don't know where to go with it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, middle school, the thing is I loved school. Like I liked going, not for learning. I was horrible. I was always getting horrible grades, but I liked the social aspect of it. I liked going to school because that was where all my homies were at. Like we could just fucking do whatever we wanted. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So it was, you know, it was good times and stuff like that. But trying to figure out who I was pretty tough because I really didn't have a lot of direction. Like, you know, everybody in my household was 40 plus besides my cousins. And my older cousin, I mean, she was a product of the 90s. She her favorite bands were like Hanson and all this other shit. So I didn't know. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't want to be that. I want to find my own cool thing, you know? And it was crazy because whenever I was in middle school, that's when I started actually listening to music. And I was listening to, you know, like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and just you kind of getting on the cusp of like rock music and figuring out what the hell was going on. And then I remember getting into high school as my freshman year. And I was this girl that was in my BCIS class. And she was always real nice to me, and we were just talking and shit. And she was like kind of like an edgy chick. Like she was cool. And so I was kind of like, you know, pretty excited that she chose me to hang out with and talk to. So we were just talking one day, and she asked if I smoked cigarettes because she smoked and stuff. And I was like, no, I don't. And she's like, oh, you straight edge or something? And I was like, what is that? She's like, you don't know what straight edge is? I was like, no. And she's like, you ever been to a show? And I was like, no. She's like, what are you doing this weekend? And she fucking invited me to my first show. And I remember going, and that was like, you know, that was where it really kind of clicked for me. I was like, this is some shit that I like. This, because, you know, it's kind of like, it's one of those things that you can't help. You when you're a little kid, you're like, oh, I'll try karate. I'll try Boy Scouts. I'll try all this shit to kind of figure out what I like. But then, you know, you get exposed to WWF and you're like, that's the shit that I naturally like.
Right.
This is what I'm thinking about. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like that.
Right.
Like,
well, she she opened you to the cave of wonders. You know, it's just like, oh, hey, here's this.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Here's Pandora's box. Like, open it up, and you're like, what is this? Do you remember who you saw at your first show? Like from that DIY level?
Yeah, it was a bunch of like old like Dallas DFW bands that would come down. We had this venue called the Pit. One of them was called Choke on the Color Olive. And
wow, I've never heard of that band. That's amazing.
Yeah, there was a lot of old bands like that. There was like, I remember seeing like there was a band called Sever the Ties, which I think Sever the Ties went on to become Power Trip later on.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, and there was fucking In the Arms of War. Well, that was the first CD that I ever got from one of those style bands.
Okay.
And I still own that CD, and it sucks because you can't find it on YouTube. You can't find it anywhere. I just have a physical copy.
Yeah.
And it still bangs, dude. That shit's hard. And like, I went to that show and it was crazy because that's where I met my long-term high school friends. My best friend that I've ever had in my whole life. That isn't where I met him. I knew him before, but me and him started getting close because he saw me at that show. He's like, "Oh, dude, how you been?" Blah blah blah. And then we started hanging out, and then next thing I know, I'm there when his fucking kids are being born. Like it's just crazy how that shit happens, and how life kind of unfolds. But with that, yeah, I had never been exposed to anything like that. Seeing a bunch of people without real rules, without really even adults around. Like, I mean, you got to remember, I was like 13 at this point. Bunch of fucking just fine ass women just fucking hanging around the show, like a bunch of brolic ass dudes like throwing people around. I was like, this is insane.
Yeah.
Like, this is fucking cool. You know what I mean?
You're like, can I do this every weekend?
Yeah, and that's what I started doing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. I remember showing my mom some of the music that I was like listening to and stuff like that, and she, being a good mom, she was like, "Oh, this is crazy. This is cool," And I was like, "Yeah, I don't fucking care, but no, thanks for listening." You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's funny because even with that, I never had really any of my family members besides one of my cousins, a couple of my cousins, a few times come to the show, but I remember showing my uncle, who he ended up becoming my adopted dad. That's how I became a Honeycutt. I used to be Parker till I got adopted by him.
Oh. Okay.
And I remember showing him one of our live videos one time of one of the shows we were playing. And when it was done, I looked at him just kind of see what he thought about it. And his response, I'll never forget it, dude. He was literally like, "Yeah." He says, "Well, when the Beatles came out, not a lot of people understood what they were about either." And I was like, "Oh my God, dude!"
Yeah.
Like,
you're like, "What?"
Pretty funny,
right? Where do I even begin?
Yeah, that's why I've just stopped explaining it to people, like, older people or any folks like that are like, "Oh, well, what do you do?" And I hate telling them I'm in a band because then they're like, "Oh, so you do nothing? You're worthless." And it's like, no, this is actually what I do for a living. I make money doing it. Like, it may not be a career that you would want your son or daughter doing long term, but it's what I do.
Yeah.
And it's worked out okay so far. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I just tell them I play music, and they're like, "Oh, what kind of?" I always just tell them like rock music, just because fuck trying to explain that shit. I'm not one of those people that's going to be overly hyped to explain to a 65-year-old woman like, "Oh shit, you've never heard of like fucking Acacia Strain, you never heard of this shit," and like try and expose them and learn them to a bunch of stuff. They don't care, and I don't care that they don't care. You know what I mean? It doesn't affect me either way. So I'm really just kind of on the down low most of the time in public as far as, what I do for a living or this and that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Did you, as you were getting, Pandora's box unlocked for you, did you care about school? Were you like, what was kind of, I know you said that you were obviously searching for something to kind of latch onto, but was there any sort of like, I guess, trajectory in regards to, all right, well, of course I'm going to go to college and then like, I'm going to, work at a factory or whatever the case may be? Like, was there any sort of, life path like that set out for you?
Yeah. I mean, I ended up doing this program my senior year of high school called the People's Conference, which they picked one kid from like, I don't know if it was like I don't know what it was. It was like probably about, I'd say maybe 50 kids. There were kids from Ireland. There was a kid from like Korea. There was some kids from New York. I was the only one from Texas, and everybody kind of converged on, UCLA for 2 weeks to learn about art and learn about it. Basically, it was a ploy, I think, to get kids to come to UCLA. But I got to be a part of that program, and because of I did art all through school. I was art club president and shit. I got voted most likely to become a famous painter. Like, just all that. I was very art driven in school, And so through that, I mean, I didn't end up going to UCLA, of course, but I went to the community college on a few art scholarships and was doing art at the college for fucking probably about half a semester, like maybe a full semester, flunking all my other classes because I didn't care about them. I was in the art room making shit, and that's whenever our band started playing more shows again, and we would do little weekend stuff. And eventually we were just kind of like, man, school fucking sucks. Like, I don't want to keep doing this shit, because my plan was to become an art teacher. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, that's what the hell? I don't want to do that. Like, why? Like, it's crazy sometimes how people can get ideas fixed in their mind, and you can trail on those ideas for years without really breaking it down and analyzing, like, is this even a good idea? Is this something I really even want to fucking do long term? Which the same thing could absolutely be said about playing music. If you would have told me 10 years ago that this is where I'd be at playing music, I'd be like, go fuck yourself, dude. I'm going to have a job and a career and all this other shit and all this stuff. And it's like, buddy, I got my truck, I got my house, and, you know, I fucking leave and I play music. That's what I do. And I don't mind it. Like, it's an interesting life to be living. And I always think about it in the sense that, like, you know, I may not have gone to college for as long as I should have. I may not have a quote unquote, like, real career or anything like that, as most people view it. But, you know, my 20s have been completely dedicated to the road, to, you know, fucking breakdowns and mosh. And it's like, that's like okay life to be living. I don't complain about that at all. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because everybody's got to pay their dues. If you want to live in this system under this kind of, you know, pressure, that's easy. The world will make you do that. So, you know, once this band's over, I'll have to kick it into high gear and get with the rest of society if I'm going to sustain my existence, you know, kind of thing. So why not just fucking live it up while you got it? And that's what I do. I try to focus real hard on living in the moment, not living in the future, because living in the future can be dangerous because you're not enjoying everything that's happening right in front of you. You know, I try and absorb it to the best of my ability because I'm really trying to be, you know, kind of proactive in the sense of, I know this is going to end. Like, I know every great thing kind of dissolves. And, you know, when it does, I don't want it to kick me in my mouth and be one of those guys that's real bitter, or one of those guys that's stuck living, you know, 10 years in the past for the rest of his life because he can't let go. You know, I want to be able to enjoy it while I got it and absorb it. So whenever it's time, you know, to put me in my grave with it, I can be okay with it. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes too much sense.
No, I completely understand what you're saying, because it's like, yeah, there are, I mean, most of the attitude of people that, you know, pursue this creative lifestyle, especially from a band perspective, you know, they're of the age in which it's like, well, yeah, I only got one chance for this. It's not like I'm going to, you know, be 55 years old and all of a sudden decide to play in a, you know, a moshcore band or whatever. So it's like, yeah, the timing is right. The structure is right for me to try to do this because, you know, I don't have, you know, a lot of responsibilities hanging on me. So it's like, yeah, like, let's just focus on this and we'll ride this however long it may be. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. Glad that made more sense than I thought it did. So
no, for sure. So, you know, and then I'm guessing, like, you know, by, you know, completely immersing yourself in kind of the scene, as it were, you know, when did the idea of, because I presume Kublai Khan is not your first band, right? Or is it?
Pretty much.
Wow.
I was in like one other band before it, but it was the same guys pretty much. And we're like, oh, let's do this instead.
Got it.
See, I really haven't ever been in another band besides this one.
Okay. Got it. So I guess what, you know, usually, and maybe I'm just reflecting this on myself, like, you know, I sang for a band for many years and I guess still technically do, but, you know, I didn't play any other instrument. So it was kind of like, well, Ray, you know, you can probably, you're loud, you could probably just yell. Did kind of the default for you fall into that same category of like, well, Matt, you know, you're cool, but I already play drums and like my friend plays guitar, or was it completely, you know, not that experience for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, the band that I was in before this one, I played drums and I wasn't good. Like, I fucking sucked. But there was a time where we were all, and this was back in high school, we were all in the garage just jamming, and we would always, you know, end up getting bored because we had no structure. Nothing was serious. We'd jam, and then somebody would be like, man, I want to go swim. So they'd go jump in the pool, and then whoever was left would just switch instruments and fuck around and do whatever. So, I remember I was on the mic a couple times, and the guy that we had on vocals, I just, I guess I don't want to sound like a dickhead, but like I kind of surpassed him pretty hard, and everybody knew it. They're like, "Damn, this sounds a whole lot better than what we got." But he was a better drummer than me, so we ended up just kind of switching. And that band ended up fucking breaking up. We probably played like 3 shows. I don't even remember. But then him on drums and the guitar player of that band were writing new music, which was Kublai Khan's first like EP, like I guess, like demo, like before even the early stuff. Like this is stuff that is just on a few burned CDs that are floating around in Oklahoma and Texas. You know what I mean? But they wrote that stuff. And they were like, "Hey man, like, we need a vocalist. Do you want to do vocals?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, cool." And so that's just kind of how it happened.
Got it.
And then I kind of took control of the situation as far as, because the 2 of them are long gone. So I'm the only one that's been there the whole time, I guess,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And were you, I guess like as you started to kind of, play shows, did the expectations meet the reality? Like, was it, I mean, clearly you're still doing it. So obviously you're excited about it, but sometimes when you start to do the thing that you've watched happen before you, it might not meet the expectations where you're just like, oh, this was a lot harder than I thought, or like, I'd be more nervous or whatever, did that, any of those things happen for you?
You talking about in like the early days, or?
Yeah. Or maybe even, as Kublai Khan started to, get out more and tour and stuff like that.
No, I mean, as far as our band, I think, I don't really know, but I think it's pretty unique in the sense that none of us really planned anything. Everything has just kind of happened. Like even still, when we get our tours, we're just like, "Oh shit, yeah, that'd be cool." You know what I mean? Like, we've never had like a big, like, this is our plan, this is what needs to happen, this is fucking 2020, this is going to happen, yada yada, this and that. Like, of course we get all our tours in advance, and we put in for everything, and we get submitted for and junk, but we just kind of keep going. Like, and I feel like that's helped ease a lot of the pressures that a lot of bands get, that I feel like that we don't really deal with. It's just like we're just kind of letting it happen. You know what I mean? And it's proven successful over the years to just be like, "Yeah, man, just fucking shit's gonna happen how it's gonna happen. Don't force it, because when you force something, it can go 10 different ways besides the way you need it to go. And if you just kind of let it happen, and you still maintain control, but you just kind of let up on the reins a little bit, I feel like it just gets you in an easier way. And so yeah, no, we don't really get too nervous or stressed about like, "Oh gosh, I wish this would happen," or this or that. It's like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And it's because we did everything we needed to do to deserve it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
To get to that spot. Yeah, no, I totally get that. And there, I know you've spoken about this publicly before as well, in regards to, your mom going through, depression and mental health issues and stuff like that. And then, I know it's difficult to speak about, but, walking in on your mom from a suicide attempt, or, she was planning on it and stuff like that. And I know I know you've brought that over to, your music as well. And you've kind of had some songs about that. I presume that so much of that, it had an effect on you, but you probably didn't have perspective on it until much later, in regards to like, oh, I wasn't aware of how much, my mom was struggling, because she was keeping that from me because she wanted me to, not be worried about her or whatever. I guess, how did that realization kind of come to you later? Was it just simply, you getting older and kind of reflecting on that a little bit more?
Yeah, it was just kind of growing up myself, going through situations where I needed people to just kind of understand me a little bit. It's kind of putting yourself in somebody else's shoes a little bit, you know what I mean? And, with her situation, I remember even when I was a younger kid, she would always tell me that parents can't put parent problems on kids' shoulders. You know what I mean? Because she always had a million problems, dude. And even when I was a little kid, there wasn't jack shit I could do, but I was always like, "Oh, what can I do?" Yada, yada, without realizing it's like, "Oh, well, we're, X amount of dollars in debt, and, we're not getting our child support this month and this and that. Like, shit, you can do nothing, kid. Like, there ain't fucking shit you can do. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Besides just be a kid, go fuck off outside. You know what I mean? And that's what I did. And that's what she allowed me to basically, you know, have my childhood while she kind of, you know, had to hold up all the problems on her back on her own. And, you know, I look at it now and I'm like, God damn, like, you know, there really wasn't anything I could do, but like, Jesus, man, like, props to her for doing that. You know, I would do the same thing if it were my kid. But, yeah, as far as the realization and stuff like that, it's just taking time. It's taken growing up, you know. It's stuff that, you know, maybe parts of it 2 months ago I still wouldn't even have got. You know, it's just, I feel like as you get older, if you're on a natural kind of trajectory, you're going to unlock things in your life. You're going to see things differently. Events are going to happen. You know, things are going to be told to you or kind of, you know, dusted off where you can really see shit from a different perspective. And, you know, being around kids now, because my friends are older and having kids, and seeing how they parent and stuff like that, it really kind of opens my eyes to how much she really did and how hard she really tried to be what she could, you know, with how little she had, you know, financially, physically, emotionally, you know. And that's some tough shit. And like I've said, you know, I didn't make it easy on her. I was a pretty shitty kid when it came to, you know, having an attitude and stuff like that. So it just kind of was what it was. But I just take it as all that can be done now is to just don't repeat the mistake. You know what I mean? If I ever have a kid, just do what I can. Like, give that kid the world. Do whatever I can do to make sure that my mother's legacy and the things that she did teach me through her struggle weren't in vain, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, it's, yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, the sentiment of you saying, you know, adults shouldn't put adult problems on kids. I mean, that rings true. It's like, there are things, you know, you don't want to keep a kid in the dark, but at the same time, it's like, there are certain things that they clearly have no effect over, like, you know, whatever, finances and stuff like that. So yeah, you want them to have their childhood and be unencumbered. So that's what your mom was doing. And, you know, you can appreciate that and articulate that now, which is important, and that, you know, can you sharing your experience can impact, you know, a lot of people from that perspective. And that's really cool.
Explore new cultures and experiences with Intrepid Travel. Intrepid specializes in socially conscious travel with over 900 amazing small group adventures to choose from in more than 100 countries. Whether it's the mountaintop vistas of the Andes, the wildlife of Tanzania, or the hidden noodle bars of Vietnam, Intrepid is there. There to get you off the beaten track, behind the scenes, and totally immersed in the joy of travel. Discover more at intrepidtravel.com. Intrepid Travel. Travel is back for good.
On game night, there's only one food delivery service that's a slam dunk, a home run, a hole-in-one, a touchdown. Sorry, I got a bit carried away there. It's Grubhub. For game night eats, late night treats, and sweet and salty faves you crave, lazy lunches, delicious family dinners, and more, it's all about the Grubhub. We all have days when cooking just isn't in the cards. Grubhub is there when you need it most, offering up everything you want, from national favorites to the best-kept secret spots in town, ensuring that there's truly something for everyone. Right now, Amazon Prime members get a year of Grubhub Plus for free, so you pay $0 in food delivery fees when you order from your favorite restaurants. Visit goforgrubhub.com/Amazon for details. And of course, with the holidays right around the corner, Grubhub gift cards are the perfect gift for everyone on your list. Who doesn't love the gift of food? Order online at grubhub.com or download the Grubhub app from your app store. Place your order and streamline your order and future food deliveries. That's grubhub.com or the Grubhub app. Go for Grubhub.
Hey, it's Ray, the host of this very podcast. And let me ask you a question. What if you had insights into your genetics that could help empower you to live healthier? How would you use that knowledge? You can hear me talk about insights from my DNA that have affected my personal health journey on this season of the podcast Spit from iHeartRadio and 23andMe. Host Baratunde Thurston, which, by the way, incredible dude, has a podcast called How to Citizen. I can't highly recommend that any more than I am right now, but listen to that and listen to this podcast. But he explores how more and more people are finding out that DNA is about more than just ancestry. It's a key to understanding your health. Your genetic profile can tell you if you are at an increased likelihood for developing a particular condition. It's knowledge that can help you make smarter choices about your health and your lifestyle. On this season of Spit, you'll hear me and 22 other podcasters and influencers discuss what genetics revealed about our health and how that knowledge can impact the way we live our lives. Listen to my episode out now on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Kind of looking at, the band, and like you said, over the past 10 years, you guys have had the, slow, gradual climb to kind of where you're at now. How, and, like you said, the focal point has never been, it's like, oh, let's, get the most money or whatever, it's a nice, it's a nice position for you guys to be in now. But how does the business of music kind of affect you? Do you, I guess, enjoy working in it? I know you obviously have a team around you now, so there are more than one person kind of doing it. But how do you, I guess, kind of, deal with that? Because that's just a reality as the band, kind of progresses and you start getting paid money for, playing shows and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, as far as for me, I view it as on a very a very local mindset, in the sense that what I do love about it, I love the venues we play. I love the promoters for the most part. I love the venue owners, I love the people that make everything possible and come out. When it comes to the labels and I guess like the industry people and all the people that I'm supposed to shake hands with and supposed to want to get to know, like I don't give a fuck about any of them, to be honest. Like, I like a handful of them. I like our team. That's why they're our team. You know what I mean? But most of them, I'm not impressed with them, and they're not impressed with me, and that's just kind of how it goes. I'm not sitting here. It's funny because when we did Warped Tour, I had these fucking jackoffs trying to tell me, like, oh man, like, you should really get out there. And the word they kept using was network. And they're like, oh, you really need, this guy's going to be here today. You really need to talk to him. Like, he could do so much for your band, this, that. And I was like, I don't give a fuck. Tell him to come watch us at 410. Like, if he wants something.
Sure.
Like, I don't care, dude. I'm not going to sit here and fucking network and get on my fucking knees for a bunch of people and show them that I ain't got no fucking spinal cord. Like, that's weak. That's stupid. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I want the merit of what we create and what we display to everybody on the stage to be what swings you. If I got to talk to you outside of that and say the right things, then I'm saying the wrong shit. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I've never been impressed with all this shit. Everybody's got such a fucking big dick in it. And they all think that, it just, so many people think they're so fucking cool. And like I said, maybe I'm a hypocrite. I mean, maybe I think I'm fucking too cool, but if you really step back and you really look at it, it's such an unimpressive situation in so many ways, of just people stabbing each other in the back, people just, the politics of it, like stuff that if that's how y'all want to run y'all's game and it's working for y'all, do it up. But that's not something I have to be a part of. That's not why I got into it. That's not why I signed up for this shit. You know what I mean? So I just kind of keep everybody at arm's length. Like, we've had to meet several people over the years, and it's so hard to pretend like I give a fuck. And I feel like they can just read it on my face that I don't give a fuck. And it's just kind of just like, okay, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I hate sounding bitter when I say that, but it's exhausting, dude. Like, networking, like, dude, well, I'm not here to do that shit. Like, I'm here to fucking, the people that want to watch us, that's what I'm here for. I'm not here to, go groping everybody's balls trying to get a better opportunity. And I guarantee the people that do that, if they're susceptible to that, and they that's how they'll work their business. I was like, you could be yesterday's, meal in like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't trust those people. Don't trust any of them. And I wouldn't trust you for telling me to network. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody's got an agenda. And if you're so shamelessly pushing it and so shamelessly eager to just nibble on some cheese from somebody else, like, I won't watch my back around you. And that's just kind of how I viewed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. It's like there are people who, love the kind of the business of music and that whole aspect of it. And, those people, like, there's obviously a necessary need for those people, but, not everybody is keyed into that. And, that it's good that you recognize that in yourself, because it would be, you know, really difficult for you if you were like, well, I have to do this. So like, I'm going to put on this mask of myself. And yeah, that just wouldn't be, you know, that wouldn't be healthy for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. No,
I mean, trying to do anything that doesn't come naturally is just, it's shitty, especially whenever you've built your band's legacy, you know, the four of us, on just being ourselves. That would be a complete mockery of everything that we've done for the last, you know, fucking 11, 12 years, however long it's been. And it's just one of those things. That's why I talk about balance a lot, because the balance is incredibly important. Like, everything that people hate, everything that I'm saying I dislike right now in this conversation that we're having, all these people that I don't like, they are so necessary in keeping the train moving. That's why I don't interfere, but I don't have to participate. You know what I mean? Just like folks like me who are doing our shit on our end of the, you know, situation, are important. That's kind of like, you know, the whole comparison of there's two types of people. There's dancers and then dance floors, you know, and both of which use each other, but they're both completely opposite, but both completely necessary to each other. Some people are the dancers, some people are the dance floors, and you just got to kind of figure out which one you are, and, you know, really kind of weaponize it and just be the best thing you could possibly be. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, totally. I get exactly what you're saying. The last thing I wanted to hit on was the, you know, the fact that it's funny because I've seen this statement kind of, you know, echoed in other interviews that you've done in regards to people being like, oh, it's, you know, really, really heartening and cool to hear you speak about, you know, racism in your songs and stuff like that. And like, not many bands do that anymore. You know, I'm 39 years old, so I'm old by all stretches of the, you know, hardcore imagination. You know, people and bands have spoken about racism for many, many years within the context of punk and hardcore, especially. And so, to me, it kind of bumps me out that the fact that these people who are interviewing you or whatever are like, oh, it's cool you're speaking about racism. And it's just like, well, yeah, that, you know, it's not defeated yet. So of course people are going to speak about it. You know, does that kind of, is that weird for you to be, you know, have people either kind of say that to you or be like, oh, wow, it's really cool you're talking about that, when, you know, I know that you are aware of the fact that, you know, other people speak about this, and clearly it's still an important issue to speak about, especially if, you know, you personally have things to contribute, like, you know, me as a whatever, you know, a white male, like I don't have any room to talk about racism beyond the fact that I don't support it because I haven't been marginalized as an individual. So I don't know. I know there's a lot a lot of thoughts in there, but yeah, I don't know if any of that kind of resonates with you.
Well, here's the thing, and this is just my opinion on it. If there's something that I fucking despise, it's the idea that because you are a, you know, white male, you must keep your mouth closed about something like that. And it's one of those things, like, there's a lot of social programming going on that's real wacky. You know what I mean? Where there's a lot of shaming going on and a lot of shit. And it is one of those things, like, just because, you know, you necessarily haven't been, you know, in the exact same shoes as somebody else does not mean you do not have an opinion. It does not mean that you don't have a valid opinion, you know? So people tell me that a lot, because people will ask me about, you know, this very thing and be like, oh, you know what, you know, you speak about racism and this and that, you know, well, me as a, you know, a white male, I can't. And I'm like, no, you say whatever the hell you need to say, like that. Once we start canceling out everybody's opinions and people feel like they can't speak about things, no matter what it is, that's when we're going to have fucking real problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not like getting on to you or anything.
No.
But it's just,
yeah,
that's something that bugs me more than racism itself, is the fact
sure.
that, I mean, that's racism to an extent, in my opinion, because it's one of those things, like, I don't view racism as just like everybody versus the minority. Racism is whenever anybody,
it's systematic.
Gets,
Totally.
Yeah. Tackled out for being, you know, physically different as far as all that stuff. Because I say physically because, like, if you want to branch it down to you know, most people, if they were to talk to me on the telephone, they were to hear me, they wouldn't know I looked the way I look. You know what I mean? because I'm not. People ask me all the time, well, what are you? And I tell them I'm a fucking American. Like, I know what you're asking, but I'm going to tell you I'm an American because, like, that's what I am. And we got to get over this shit. You know what I mean? It's not all about that stuff. And my view on racism has fluctuated drastically over the years because I have been at the receiving end. And I've also witnessed the receiving end from other people. You know, I've witnessed, like I said, plenty of groups of people where, you know, there'll be one white guy in a group and then a bunch of, you know, people of color or whatnot. And the white guy just, oh, I can't talk about that. Or like, I just have to agree with everything. And it's just like, no, you fucking don't. Like, nobody does. Like, we got to fucking stop this shit because this is more dangerous than anything. You know what I mean? Racism is never going to disappear. As long as you got people that look different from each other, prejudice is always going to be there. You know what I mean? Everybody, deep down in their core of their bones, somewhere, has had a prejudice that they have had to overcome. You know what I mean? That's human fucking nature. Yep. That's not when people start to buy into this idea that there's a perfect society and there's going to be these perfect people that are going to come after us, that they're never going to be prejudiced and never going to have any racism. It's bullshit, man. The best you can do is just fucking, like, it's like working out a muscle. Like, just work it out, do better. Like, just don't fucking let your prejudice get the best of you. Don't take it out on other people because you think something stupid. You know what I mean? And it's ridiculous. And it's the fight that I feel like I used to really kind of fight as far as like racism was just like, it was very closed-minded. I was very just like us versus them kind of thing. And that's so detrimental. It's so closed-minded, and it really doesn't do anything for anybody. I was having a talk with one of my friends a few tours back, and shit, I forget. I think he's Puerto Rican. I thought he was black was the thing. That's why we were talking about it. And he told me what his actual nationality was. And I was like, damn, that's fucking crazy. And, you know, we were talking about the band's kind of older music and how I was kind of more foaming at the mouth when it came to a lot of that shit. And I was just telling him, I was like, dude, I've grown up a little bit. My fucking thinking has changed. And the thing that I think more than anything now is the most dangerous thing to minorities is a minority mindset. When you start to believe that you are, you know, when you start to see racism everywhere, you know, you really start to degrade yourself unintentionally. You know, if you think you're a minority, you are a minority. And that's why I'm saying I've tried to focus more on just like, the world's not out to get me. Like, if people don't like me because they don't like me, fuck it. You know, and if there's people out there that truly are racist, because that's another thing, the term racism is just, it's thrown around and it's lost so much of its true meaning that so many people that use it, in my opinion, have never experienced true gut-wrenching, like soul-crushing racism. They've never experienced it. And I hope to fuck they never do. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things where, you know, if you start to really put yourself in the box that others want you to be in and be like, oh, well, I am a minority. Like, the world's harder for me. It's like a lot of these people, you know, your problems are your problems. You can, when you really look at it, the color of your skin, especially this day and age, we live in the most prosperous time for people of all races in this country to be getting along. And yet we still have problems. I'm not discrediting that. And I will say that for the rest of forever, we will have problems. We will never get rid of it. Things will get better, but there will always be problems. So to try and erase all problems I think it's kind of a futile effort. You know what I mean? The best you can do is educate, and not even so much educate everybody else. Fuck everybody else. There's going to be stupid people. Educate yourself. You know, that's one thing that I've said for a long time is the best thing I could do as a quote unquote minority to help anybody else's opinion of me is to just be a good person. Show them that there's nothing to be afraid of, that I'm not fucking different. They're not different. I'm not looking at them different or thinking, oh, this fucking white guy or this guy. You know, it's not about that. And it's just every year that goes by, the more angry I get with how things are going, because we're losing sight of so much shit, and everybody is so privileged now. And everything is just, if everything becomes racism, then racism is extinct. You know what I mean? Because at that point, it's lost its true grit. And that's almost a blessing. But at the same time, you know, I'm going off on a big tangent. This is something that fucking fires me up. So I can't keep yelling on it. But I don't even know if I answered your question.
No, you danced around it. But I mean, I think ultimately the core feeling and emotion that you have towards it, shows that you obviously have put thought into it, and that's something that everybody needs to do, regardless of their affiliation racially. And I think it's one of those things that it's important, and the core of it is the fact that it's weird when I see people be like, oh yeah, like, people still talk about racism, and it's just like, well, of course they do, like, because it's not like the problem is solved, it's like that still needs to be expressed.
No, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a good thing you are.
Yeah. And it's like you're saying, like, it's not solved. Like, I'm not sitting here being like, watch everybody freaking out about, like, of course there's fucking problems. There's always going to be problems. You know what I mean? But to sit here and, I've heard so many people say, even at shows, like, oh, America's the most racist country in the whole world. Like, what the hell and all this shit. And I'm just like, look, buddy, like, I get up there and say some shit too. I'm not crazy about the police. I don't think that they treat, minorities fairly, yada, yada, if that's what you want to get into, because that's where most people pull it from as far as our set nowadays. But I'm just like, you gotta quit. Like, the fact that you and I are having a conversation right now, whoever that person may be, is proof that, things are not as bad as everybody thinks they are. We're not living in one of these homogenous countries where everybody looks the fucking same. Like, of course there's going to be goddamn problems, man. Like, human beings by nature are one generation away from being knuckle draggers. Like, we're products of our environment. You know what I mean? And this is a very colorful environment that we're all in, and everybody's still trying to find their footing. So I feel like as long as everybody takes it a little bit more easy on each other and stops blaming each other, that everybody's the enemy and this and that, and you're the cause to all my problems. And it's just tough. And that's why, like I said, I mean, I have a lot of white friends, and I advocate for them too. It's like, just because they're white doesn't mean that, they don't have a say. If we're all going to be human beings in this situation, it's fucking cliche as that sounds, and I hate saying it because it sounds like some kumbaya stuff, but it's like, it's the reality of the situation. If we're all going to get along and we're all going to get together, we got to make things, as not necessarily, I guess as open as they can be for people to speak on a platform. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if everybody has the ability to speak and everybody takes the initiative to listen, then I feel like we can get more done than just like, no, you got to shut your mouth and that's the solution. That's not a fucking solution. It's just dangerous. That's all I'm getting at. You know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you're saying.
So that was Matt. What a great conversation. Like I said, my expectations and preconceived notions were completely thrown to the wind, and I loved having this conversation. You need to check out their most recent full length, which is called Absolute. Came out on Rise Records last year, late last year, I want to say, and I thoroughly enjoy it, and I enjoy all of their previous stuff as well. There's just an intelligent hardcore band, even though maybe on the surface you might not think that, but they are, trust me. So thank you very much, Matt, and thank you very much, Tim, his publicist, for hooking this up and encouraging me to have this conversation. So next week, we have Will Putney, who is a producer extraordinaire, and he also plays in a band called End and a band called Fit for an Autopsy, and he's just a all-around good, very interesting human being, because I've only, I toured with him for maybe about a week, or no, actually maybe it was like 4 or 5 days. This was a couple years ago with End, and I got to know him a little bit, but then peeling away the layers of him as an individual during this conversation kind of blew my mind. So that's what we got next week, and like I always say, but I mean it even more so now, please be safe, everybody.
Explore new cultures and experiences with Intrepid Travel. Intrepid specializes in socially conscious travel with over 900 amazing small group adventures to choose from in more than 100 countries. Whether it's the mountaintop vistas of the Andes, the wildlife of Tanzania, or the hidden noodle bars of Vietnam, Intrepid is there. There to get you off the beaten track, behind the scenes, and totally immersed in the joy of travel. Discover more at intrepidtravel.com. Intrepid Travel. Travel is back for good.
Finally, a podcast network that understands the assignment. The Alive Podcast Network has launched the world's first content distribution app tailored by and for podcasters and listeners of color. Subscribers will enjoy a wide variety of shows, ranging from spiritual to comedic to inspirational. Podcasters can house their content and merch in one spot and monetize from a central location. You can thank me later.
Download the Alive Podcast app for free or subscribe for $20 for 6 months to experience ad-free listening.
People who don't know Bruce have to understand two things. One is he's built like something Michelangelo has carved out of a piece of marble.
True, this is true.
And number two, he's the first person to show you that at every party, at every dinner.
Maybe take your shirt off.
I'm Bruce Bozzi. That was George and Julia. You may not know me yet, but you already know most of my lunch dates by their first names and voices alone. Listen to Table for Two on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.